Do you like what you hear? Then you need a Devon bass. Devon bass. Better by design. Whether you're old school or whether you're new school, we discuss it all for the only one that matters.
Okay, let's see here. We can do this.
So I'm not the only one who talks to himself.
No, not at all, man. I do it regularly.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to meet you. I love that video you did.
Thanks. You know, that was I, I had just gotten into this and I went with a friend because I knew he was going to that festival and I really wanted to go. So that was the only way that I could get my wife to say, yeah, you should go on tour with him. And it worked, you know, and so we did it, you know, and it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, you know, I hinted at when I chatted with you in our chat, I had a videography company, and you know, it's funny. I'm a Christian, and I always go to God for, you know, whenever I got something new coming up, you know, because I want to get, you know, the Bible says you surround yourself with many counselors, and you know, call upon God if you want wisdom. Blah blah blah. I did none of those things because I knew this was a no-brainer. This was going to be perfect. And within 6 months, I was bankrupt.
Wow.
I did everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And my partner, who I partnered up with, we went in there and he was going to be the salesman because I can't sell water to a thirsty man. I'm a nerd. I'm the guy. I'm the techno guy. I like the video editing. I like the audio editing. Well, it turns out we joined forces, started this company, and neither one of us could sell water to a thirsty man.
That was a tough time for that business too. Looking back at it now, what we're dealing with now are costs are, I'll say, so low to get into having video promotional material
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many more, you know, videographers out there, but there's so many companies that understand the ROI on these things and how these assets really help move their business forward. So therefore, it's easier for them to swallow that $3,000 or $5,000 at the beginning, knowing that if you use those assets properly, it's going to get your money for you.
Yeah. Well, I also discovered that man should know his limitations.
True that.
And I was a Navy musician. All right, when I got out of high school, I was a musician in high school. Joined the Navy, went into the Navy music program, and got to tour and play with some heavyweight hitters. I went through school with a kid who was a bari sax player for hot shot trumpet player Maynard Ferguson, a trombone player who traveled with Buddy Rich. I went out in my first band, played some players who used to play with Lou Rawls. So I mean, I was around some really heavy hitters, and I got really burned out in music, and I just after 5 years laid it down and did other things in the Navy, and then I became an engineer outside of the Navy. And then 2001, when the 9/11 hit, I got fired about the same time. I'd like to blame that totally on the company, but truth be told, I had a part to do with it. And I zigged when I should have zagged, and I got canned. So that's when I started the video production company, emptied my life savings into it because it was going to be such a sure deal. And no, not so much.
It was definitely a roll of the dice for me, but I kind of just had to take the chance. I didn't really have anything else going on. You know, I was selling floors for 5 years. The last band I toured in was based out of Florida, and I'd actually picked my family up and we moved down to Florida in 2013. And we toured for about half of a year and then it just got stagnant. We weren't working. And I have a family and I'm thinking, well, guys, we should be working more. And it wasn't everybody's mindset, because if you're going to go out on a tour and you go to Starkville, you probably should go back to Starkville in about 6 weeks, and then about
Right.
6 weeks after that, you're trying to build something and build something. But it wasn't happening like that. So at that point, my wife and I discussed really what was going on and decided that it's time we'll just move back home to Woodstock. And we were only gone for, man, maybe a year, but it was the fastest year ever. And it just I still love the music, but the babysitting, and the constant, it was like a constant party all the time, and nobody really wanted to grow up. Everybody's kind of just still
Yeah.
living that life and not treating it like a business, and it wasn't worth it.
Oh man, yeah, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
It's when I got laid off, I couldn't think of anything to do, and then my company went belly up. I hadn't played guitar in 20 years, so I marched my butt into the local guitar store in Conyers, Georgia, and said, "Do you need a guitar teacher?" Ballsiest move I have ever made in my entire frickin' life. Said, "Do you need a guitar teacher?" I said, "Well, yeah, but we can't give you any students." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll open up the store with you every morning. I'll park my butt back there in the guitar section. I'll help whoever comes back there. I'll answer the questions. I'll help you sell your guitars. I don't want any commission. I just want first run at them for students." He said, "Sure." So I went back there and I started I'd sit down in a chair, pull a guitar off the wall, and started pulling guitar books out of the rack and working my way through the guitar books. And when I get a student, I find a guitar book that would be kind of cool for them and stayed a page or two ahead of them in the book. And nobody ever knew that I didn't know what the snot I was doing when I started out with that.
Awesome. That is awesome. I
Yeah,
had
I
a
just,
I had a pivot like that this year. I've joined a lot of different groups for different crew jobs in the
Mhm.
production field. So whether it be a cam op or, and I signed on for stagehands, which I quickly realized I did not want to do that. But I said yes when I probably shouldn't have. Or, well, I'll say this: most people wouldn't have said yes, but I said yes to like a cam op doing a basketball game on a $250,000 broadcast camera that I'd never even touched in my life. But I went in there, I found someone that did know how to use it and quietly asked him to show me around the camera, and he did. And that led to like 5 other cam op jobs this summer. So now I've got, I don't know, a total of like 70 hours experience on broadcast cameras that, had I said no, never would have happened. So that's like, praise
well,
God.
well, I started, I started building up it took me the first year after bankruptcy, my break even point was $22,000. That's what I needed to keep the lights on, food, and everything going, and made $11,000. And my wife and I cannot tell you where that extra money came from. It wasn't like somebody walked up and said, we've been praying about you, Paige, and God says give you $11,000. I don't know where the money came from, but when a bill was due, there was money in the bank. We paid it,
Yeah.
and it was. My daughter helped us a couple times putting food in the pantry, that kind of thing. But there was just it was a miracle year in a lot of ways. But as I started, I'd been doing it for a year, building up my clientele, and my brother at the time, who was working at Microsoft, called me up and said, "Hey, look, you didn't ask me to do this, but I sent your resume to a friend of mine who works at Hewlett Packard, and he wants you to give him a call. The job starts at 75 grand a year. It's just a formality. You walk in there. He saw your resume. You walk in there. The job's yours." So I sat down with Glenda and discussed it with her. And my dad had this thing where he never once in his entire life gave me advice. He'd always ask questions and pull the answers out of me, right? And so she says, "Well, I'm going to pretend I'm your dad right now. I'm going to ask you the question he would ask you. Pretend you're going to that job tomorrow. You took the job. Tomorrow's your first day at work. What does it feel like?" I said, "I want to puke. I hate corporate America." And she said, "Well, then, there's your answer."
There you
And she said,
go.
we were poor when we got married. We're poor now. The kids are on their own. They're in college. They're doing fine. She said, "I want to give it a shot and see what being a full-time vocational musician looks like. And she said, and besides, when we're together in a rest home someday, the last thing I want to hear is seeing you in a rocking chair saying, I woulda, coulda, shoulda. I wonder what would have happened if. She said, let's find out what happens, and then we'll decide. Let's go.
Woman.
Yeah. Well, you get something like that in the boat, you don't want to kick it out.
Got that right, dude. I'm 20. We had just had our 26th wedding anniversary this past September.
Wow.
I think it's 26th. And she was always really supportive in much the same way. Had I been the one at home and she was the one in the band, I'm way too jealous and insecure to be like, my wife be traveling out on the road playing in shows, there's just no way. But it was never that for her. It was always, not a cheerleader, but my biggest fan, wanted me to go out and do the thing, and whatever made me happy was going to make her happy. And it's an amazing thing when you find the right person to share life with, for sure.
Well, then she also changed things up. She taught herself to teach piano. Nice. So now we are both private music instructors at a small church in Powder Springs. Small church. It's actually a pretty large church. But we teach there, and I teach some virtual lessons and stuff. But we're partners in crime now, in almost every part of the way. Now, I noticed in your friends thing on Facebook that we share a common friend, Gary Lamb.
Gary Lamb. This is how I found you today, because I had lunch with Gary 2 days ago. And
he is the most unique friend I have.
I saw a mention of the podcast, and I have, since I finished the documentary, and I'm still working with that artist. He's the only artist I work with. And I've just been looking for different podcasts to get on and talk. And I'm striking out. So this was once again one of those moments where I'm just throwing a dart, looking for somebody to talk to, and here we are.
It started off, this is a passion project for me. I've been doing a podcast for the last year and a half since the beginning of the pandemic called Coffee, the Bible and Page, where I do a Bible devotion every morning at 8 o'clock. Show up on Facebook Live. Been having trouble with Facebook this last 3 months. But I've been filming it and podcasting it and everything. But basically just wrapping myself around the technology, because this is what I want to do, this kind of thing. And I started thinking that I'll just talk to musicians, Christian musicians, but I want to get both sides of the fence. This isn't about church music. It's really about Christian artists living in the world.
Yeah,
working both sides of the fence. And so it's I thought, I was afraid that it was going to dry up and that I'd run out of people to talk to. Dude, I got a laundry list.
Nice.
And you're the first videographer type person. I really was excited when I saw that, because it's every bit as much of an artist. I mean, there's
I've it's funny that you say it like that, because I do audio recording, right? I've been doing that with bands forever, and then you jump into the video side of things, and I've been with Final Cut since Final Cut 7, and now I'm in DaVinci. But it's they're very similar, and not in the way that you push the buttons, but just in the manner of way you think and you put things together or layer things. And there's a lot of similarities. So it's easy for me to talk to my musician buddies if we're collaborating on something, because we're kind of both speaking the same language. Like I could look at your microphone and tell you I could probably speak the language. You probably speak the language with us. What is that? A Pure SMB7? What are you talking into?
This is actually a Rode USB.
Okay, a USB, nice.
Yeah, it's like here.
It's even got some bottom end on it.
Oh my! They just came out with a. Let's see if I can pull this around here. They just came out with a. There we are. But they have this thing called Rode Connect. It's a software app that couples with this and put some bottom end on it and all that kind of stuff. Cool. So it's actually, I brought my son. My son is a producer, and he gave me some really high-end microphones to try. And there was very little difference between this guy and his $500 Shure mic that I played with.
Yeah, it's a lot of nuance in there, a lot of little subtleties and stuff like that. But
And
you
it
find
works for
that works.
me because it's simple. I'm a big fan of keep it simple, stupid.
Same. That's
So
what
it's but yeah. So it's Gary Lamb. So do you go to Action Church?
Look, I have never even heard of Gary until 2 weeks ago, and I had a friend of mine that was in the last band that I toured in. He grew
Uh-huh.
up in Canton. We grew up together, and he says to me, "You got to follow this guy, Gary. He's got multiple businesses. He's an entrepreneur that would probably people like him are going to utilize people that have services like yours." And I thought that he was like a friend of Gary's. He said, follow, right? So he don't even know Gary. And I get in touch with him after I kind of check out all of his pages and his businesses. And I wanted to just talk with him and see what he had going on because I know there's video production elements everywhere, everything that he's doing. And so we had a lunch and he didn't know my friend. They're not friends and he's never heard of him. But I was sitting there having lunch with Gary, and Gary knows who I am now, and I know who he is. And he was like, to be honest, I can't believe you've never heard of me. I said, I've been living here in Woodstock for 25 years. I've never heard of you.
He is a weirdo. And I mean that in the kindest, most coolest sense of the word.
Oh yeah, he's one of those. He's an entrepreneur. In my mind, he is a man. What is it? Oh, there's the word.
He's a hustler.
Hustler. That's the word I'm looking for. He's a hustler. And most people like that own stores and sell a product. He's just selling himself, what he's or what he's about.
And there's a lot of folks that don't get him, and he's really rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And he marches to the beat of a different drum, and he doesn't care if you like the band.
Yeah, he's marching to his own drummer, I think. I think it's his own drummer he's got going, and that's cool. I get it. I love it. And I really, and then I looked into the wrestling aspect of it. And then I was blown away after
Here's a pastor in Canton, and he's running a wrestling promotion.
Did you watch his documentary?
What's that?
Did you watch his documentary?
No, not yet.
Oh my gosh, he's got star power. You watch that, and he's got star power. If you ever kept up with wrestling at all, you'll see a lot of people you've seen.
And, oh my God!
Yes,
well, I met him when he was at Westridge Church about 20 some odd years ago when I first moved over here, and we actually moved into the house that he was moving out of when he moved up to Canton, and he and I got to be acquaintances, speaking buddies, and we don't run in the same circles anymore, but I keep up with him and encourage him whenever I can. But he is I just get the biggest kick out of him because I'm just a big fan of the odd duck.
Yeah.
And that's the oddest duck in the pond.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a few of them, and most of them are fairly to highly creative and very, very high strung, and that's all right. That's all right. It takes all types. I'm more of the guy that I'm not nearly as high strung as that. Oh man, what a guy. That was interesting.
It was for me, I'm it's a year when I became a Christian in 1975, and it was the weirdest thing. I was in boot camp, and I went to church in boot camp to get away from my company commander because that was the last place he would be, and he was the only man on this planet that I've ever been afraid of. And so this was 3.5 hours away from the scariest man I knew. So I went to church. I could have given a crap about what was being talked or done. Well, this one Sunday I'd go there, and they would bring a different church from the community. Every Sunday it'd be something different. Well, this Sunday it was a Black Pentecostal Church of God in Christ, Jerusalem, Holy Antioch, something or other. And they had the big black women with the white hankies and the tambourines and the purple robes. Air-sucking preacher, and the Lord, and the Hammond B3 organ, and the Lord, wah! Bass player thumping it, and all that kind of stuff, and they're dancing and shouting. I worked my way down to the front because I grew up in a small fishing village in Southeast Alaska. I ain't never seen nothing like this before.
Wow.
And so, I was almost getting whiplash. My head was whipping to the side and to that side. And then I closed my eyes, and the music was just incredible. I'd never heard black gospel music before. I was stunned. And all of a sudden, I just knew that Jesus was standing next to me. And if I reached out my hand, I put it on his shoulders. And then this phrase goes through my head. It says, "Depart from me, you wicked. to the fire prepared for the devil and his angels. It's not a typical conversion story.
Right.
But I remember being terrified, just absolutely terrified, because all of a sudden, and I didn't know that that was a Bible verse, and I didn't know these next words were Bible verses, but I knew that I was a sinful man in the presence of a sinless God, and death was required. And if the gates to hell had opened up behind me, I would have turned around and walked straight through without a question asked, because I was guilty. But then these words go through, more Bible words that I didn't know. But I've loved you with an everlasting love. And all of a sudden, I realized how close to death I'd come, and the fact that God saved me. That's the only word for it. He saved me. And then I heard this voice in my head saying, but I have a ministry for you. So immediately, of course, I assume I'm going to be a preacher, or I'm going to be a music. They called them ministers of music back then, and because I was a musician. And I spent the next 15 years chasing down either one of those two things, and God just kept slamming the door shut on me. And finally, I got all that worked out and realized I'm not going to be a preacher, not going to be a minister of music, I'm not going to be a worship leader. And I was at Westridge, and I did a spiritual gifts test with the pastor there. And my three big gifts are teaching, administration, and prophecy. And I said, that puzzles me, because those are the kind of gifts you'd expect to see in a preacher or minister of music, that kind of stuff. But God says, no, I don't get it. He says, oh, I'll tell you why. He said, there's another spiritual gift in there called mercy. You score it 2%. In other words, you have no mercy. The reason you're not a worship pastor is because nobody would live through the rehearsal. I'm like, well, I see that. Because, and I can handle kids, but whiny adults throw me around the corner.
Woo, tell me about it. Yeah. And
so when you said you had trouble with the party attitude and the not wanting to grow up thing with the band and stuff, I would, if I'd been in that band with you, I would have been hatching a plot with you to throw them under the wheels of the bus.
It was their band, man, and honestly, I love the guys to death. And the primary songwriter, they're all good guys. They grew up, maybe we'll call it a couple of years after I did, because it didn't hit me to actually really grow up. I just knew that I was tired of that level of it, right? So I didn't really take a big step up from there until on my 45th birthday, and that took a while to occur. So we were just all in different places in that cycle. Yeah. And sometimes you got to crash and burn to realize that you were even crashing to begin with. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
So now, what are you doing now? Are you just are you still doing music?
I play more guitar now than I ever have, only because a lot of times I'm having to just look through footage and just spend time watching, and I can do that with a guitar in my hand, and that's brain training is what I've been told. So I actually feel good about it now. So I play a lot of guitar, but I don't play out. I don't have anybody to play with. As you can see, I got some guitars behind me. I record songs. I play along with music here in the studio. I'd like to play with some folks, because I do miss live shows, but I don't miss being on tour or any of that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Sleeping
being a bass player, it's just too dang heavy anymore. All that gear.
Oh yeah,
packing in, packing out.
Yeah.
I got
always got the heaviest cabinet.
I've been focusing on guitar. I've been a professional bass player almost all my life, but I've been focusing on guitar specifically the last 15, 20 years. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a friend of mine who played guitar in Atlanta, and he had the most beautiful guitars. I asked him where he got them. He said, oh, I build them myself. I went, what? I got to talk to you. And I was starting to consider not playing guitar anymore, because my thumb is arthritic right here. And gripping the guitar was causing me so much hurt. I couldn't play an acoustic guitar more than 30 minutes. I'd have to stop because the pain would be too big. And so I went and explained it to him. He said, oh, I know what your problem is. You're holding guitar like this, aren't you? Thumb behind the second finger. I said, yeah. I says, look at the stress. He says, I got the solution for you. So he went down, brought a guitar up, and instead of a C-shaped neck, it was an offset V, where the V was I guess the V portion of it was up a little higher up the neck. So it almost makes like a little platform that your thumb, instead of gripping the neck, my thumb rests on top of it now. And there's no stress. And now I played a a guitar only gig for 3.5 hours nonstop the minute I got that guitar in my hands.
No
And
problem.
and that's my go-to. It's a Telly. It's got a mahogany body and neck, beautiful maple top, maple fretboard, and it. Oh,
That's what I got behind. I've got a 52 reissue here behind me. It's not mine. It's technically my son's. I bought it in '03. It was made in '03. So it's basically, I told him I bought it for him. That's how I got my wife talked to him to let me buy it. So it's technically it's
been
his,
there.
but he doesn't play. So I keep it here. And then I've got a Les Paul Jr. behind me and a P bass
Yep.
and a J45 Gibson acoustic, which is my baby.
Yeah, I got a Taylor mahogany, but then I went to a bluegrass camp this last fall, and I put my hands on a Martin D28.
Woo, son. Yeah.
Yeah, my $1,500 Taylor turned into a $1,500 piece of lumber
Yeah.
overnight, just like that. I've never seen a. If that's my last, that'll be my last guitar I get, I'm sure, because it costs like $3,000.
Yeah, but you got they're also made in the U.S. too. You got to because they're like the lower part of their line. Didn't they move down to Mexico?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
a lot
so.
of the cheaper ones are down in Mexico now. So the D28s, I'm sure, are all still made here. Those are beauties. Flat top specials, man. Those
Yep.
sound so good.
In the bluegrass world, they're gold.
Yeah, and I'm not a flat top picker like that. And so when I went and actually got an acoustic guitar, and this was in 2000 when I got this one. But I pretty much played everything. The Taylor I really liked just because it was just so easy to play.
Right.
They're so easy to play, but I found that I just didn't find a lot of character there. And I'm a strummer, kind of a heavy strummer,
Mm-hmm.
and the Gibson J45 really supported that.
Well,
And
yeah,
I've
that's a
always liked that thing.
huge sound.
It
Uh,
is. It's just you can sit around the campfire with it, and just it's everything I need.
well, the Taylor for me is a singer-songwriter guitar, and that's totally okay. I get it, and it's got a sweet sound, and they've got some mojo because you could put me in a circle and surround me with Taylors, and I could, if I spun around and whatever Taylor I touch, I could take home. I'd be happy with it because
They
they're
play.
all amazing guitars.
Yeah.
But if you find one of those, like you put me in a room with Martin, like 10 to 12 Martin D28s, only two of them are going to shine to me, because and that's a funny thing about Martins. But if you find that magical D28, dude, nothing's going to touch it.
Mm-mm.
Nothing's going to touch it. So I'm looking for my unicorn guitar, and it's
Well, I
going
hope
to be
you
a
find it.
Martin.
I hope you find it. Do you ever have you ever been over or spoken to Atlanta Vintage?
Uh, I've heard of them, and I've done my best to stay out of there until I have a pocketbook that can support
Oh,
what I
I
want to do.
understand. I'd never went in there until I don't know about a month and a half ago. My grandfather, who had recently just passed, he was into woodworking for a portion of his life and thought, hey, my grandson plays guitar. I should build him one. And so he
Oh,
did. And it's really cool. It's very unique. It doesn't play very well at all. He, like I said, he only made one guitar. But so it's three-piece neck and then a three-piece body. He cut the frets in and everything. I took it in to have it rewired, and I took all the hardware off and blacked it out. Just put
right.
black hardware on everything. Um, so I took it to Atlanta Vintage. I said, "Look, I need you to put I want to put this tailpiece on. I was going to put like a Gibson tailpiece on it.
Mhm.
He said, "No, do this one. Do this one. This one will work out better. You've got holes in the back of the body already. Just go ahead and stick it like this." I said, "Good. Get a black one. Fine. That'll work." But funny thing about the guitar is he went to the store and bought this book at the wood store on how to build a guitar, and apparently when he was making the body of the guitar, either he was trying to be original or some pages got stuck together because the top of the guitar is an SG shape
Right.
and the bottom of the guitar is from a Telecaster. So I've got I'm sorry, not a Telecaster, Stratocaster. It's the
Right.
Strat, it's the bottom of a Strat on the bottom. So
Oh, my word.
it's pretty wild looking, and I'm having him set it up so I could play slide guitar on it. So we thought of a pickup that would work good in there.
Mhm.
It'd be really hot for slide guitar. So that's what it's being set up for, just so I can have it and play it.
Man. Well, it's funny. The one reason I really, really like that documentary you did is because I love that artist. And that's first I've heard him. But He
Oh, he's
is,
so good, man.
he's like an Arlo Guthrie type
Yeah,
vibe.
he's
And
he was one of my best friends, man. He's a good dude.
he's, what I liked about him is, and this is what I really had liked, his music is about telling a story. He's not looking for a meter or a rhyme or some poppy formulaic type way of approaching. He's telling a story with all these songs.
Yeah.
And I could listen to that stuff all stinking day long.
Yeah, we've
And that's where my heart is. I'm a folky indie guy.
he's an interesting one. You know, he was in the very first band that I left here in '99. Our band, we all left here and went down to Florida, and he stayed after the band split up, and that was in like 2000. But he's always just been a friend, and I just started this production company, and I have the gear. You know, I have paid work coming in from corporate stuff, which allows me to do the passion projects. So that's why I do those things. And I asked Dean, I said, look, let's go on this tour and let me come. I'll film it and I'll put together a documentary. It can live on my homepage or on my YouTube page, but you can use it for, you know, you can have it. He said yes. Like, all right. At the end of that tour was a big show at a place in St. Pete where a big swing dance gang was coming. So at the end of that tour, instead of going home, I stayed an extra few days so I could film that. It was a concert at the Palladium in St. Petersburg, Florida. And there's so much cool dancing. It was actually the highlight of my week, you know. And we'd been on that tour, but then I got to film this and didn't even know we were going to do it. And that's also available up there. But that's more of a, you know, full concert in a big venue, and it's really really special night.
Well, I reached out to him and told him I just saw his documentary and I loved his music. And he got back to me within minutes.
Oh yeah, he's a pro. Him and I worked very hard to make sure that he's releasing a record in a few months. And we're working very hard to make sure that this is the biggest record that he's put out. And we're doing all the social media ourselves. I'm giving him everything I can do to help him on his social platforms so he can think, you know, be more of a musician instead of having to be a social media specialist.
Right.
And my thought process is this: if we can, we're seeing everything trend up now. So if we can keep pushing that, that should trickle to the bottom line where we all start making some money. So I'm hoping for him that we can keep doing what we're doing and it keeps going up. And he continues. He's started to really pick up his presence on social media because he saw the numbers work and support that.
Right.
And he's doing what most artists won't do, and that's the work. And it's awesome. He's an awesome dude, but he is an atheist.
Is he?
Oh yeah, yep, always has been. And they're just super simple people. They're spiritual in a sense, and the most loving people I know. Their son is a military vet himself, and it's just it's always been their thing. You know,
You know, it's fun. I've only met two honest atheists in my life, and an honest atheist isn't someone who's mad at God, because if they're mad at God, then they're not an atheist.
Yeah,
they're
totally
mad at somebody, and they know he's there, and they're angry with him. I get that.
Yeah,
But I've only met two people who were honest intellectual atheists, and they came to that position honestly. And disagree with it as I may, I respect that intellectual integrity. Now, one of them is actually a Christian now. And I met him at VCFA, Vermont College of Fine Arts, and we were there together in the same cohort. And he came down, and I was having lunch. Now, with my professor was a gay man, and his partner was there. And I was sitting across from a militant lesbian Catholic girl. And and Michael came down, and he said, I stopped there, and I saw you. And I went, I thought Christians hated those people. And I went, yeah, really? Why? He said, well, I just thought that, but you were like laughing and talking and carrying on a conversation. I said, well, yeah, they're cool people.
we're all normal people.
Yeah, they're just folks. And he said, and he said, at that moment I began to realize, I said, I think I've seen my first real Christian. And says, you made me start thinking that maybe there might be something to this. And so we kept contact, and he's a believer now. Now he's not your conventional believer. I will grant him that. but but he was an intellectually honest atheist. And I believe no matter what your faith tradition is, you should be intellectually honest enough to put it out there to be examined.
Sure. And if you're gonna be that, and I know two of them, right? I know like kind of the same story. But both of them have read almost all the books, whether it be the Bible, the Quran. I mean, they're well read. They see what it is, and it's just they've made a choice, and that's okay. All right.
But I believe even as a Christian, I'm willing to sit down with an atheist and talk because I'm willing to have my beliefs challenged. Because at the bottom line, all of us want to do is be right.
Yeah.
No matter what it is you believe. And so it was interesting with Michael. But I thoroughly enjoyed this gentleman's music. I've been writing songs for years, but God, I provide too much detail in my songs.
He's got some old world sensibility, and the mindset that he took writing this, he just kind of dove back into that time frame, and he lives down in Sarasota, which is, the circus capital of the world. That's where all your circus folk live, There's no taxes, it's cheap, all that good stuff, which Ringling Brothers is in was in Sarasota. So he kind of found that he got into that story, and that it kind of all fit in, and he just wrote this entire piece, kind of going around that, and all the songs are tied together with little snippets of pieces of music that he's written that tie it all together. So we're gonna do a project. Instead of making 3 videos for singles for the record, we're going to do a 12 to 14 minute short film. It's going to be probably here in Georgia, period piece. I don't know how we're going to pull it off, but he's got to write the story, and we're going to film it hopefully the end of January. The end of February or early March, so we can get that ready for about the time the records come in, the vinyl. Right. So we're kind of on a time crunch to get that stuff. But
so he's ordering vinyl.
Yeah, we're going to get some vinyl. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Love me some vinyl,
because you got to put a bunch of money up for it, and it takes forever. And then, he's only going to order 100. I told him I'm pretty sure he can at least break even on 100. 100 he should be able to sell, no problem. And also we'll start some pre-sales and put some pre-sale packages together on his website to try to get some upfront, just see how it goes. But he really wants a record on this one. He's never pressed any vinyl for his records. And the other band that I used to play in, they press vinyl on every single record.
Wow.
They're more of a rock band though.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, do you have any other artists that you're working with right now, or is he it?
No, just him, because I can't afford to work with anybody else. So everything I do for him is just for love, but he sends me money. I don't ever ask him to, but he'll send me $100, a couple $100 here, because I'm continuously I'm helping. The stuff I do is helping him.
You're building his brand.
I'm building his brand. I'm helping him do that for the main reason I want to get the experience and see what works, how it works, and when it works. You know what I mean? So it's helping me, it's helping him. And at the end of the day, I would say by mid next year, we'll probably switch into more of like a management type of role or something like that, where it's easier to maybe make a little bit of money if he's making money, right? That's the name of the game, is to get more people at his shows.
Well, you're doing what I like to do. It's like I just did. I'm starting to branch into writing out manuscripts for people who write songs, and writing lead sheets for them. Gotcha. And I'm just starting to do that. And I've had my first couple clients, and my son said, "Dad, you didn't charge him enough money for what you're doing." I said, "Oh, I know, but I will later." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm going to school now."
Right.
And so this is, and I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. They're taking a chance on somebody who's never done this.
Yep.
And I know I can do it, and I'm going to provide them the product. They're going to like it. And, but I'd say probably this time next year, I'm going to double my fees. But by this time next year, I'll know what I'm doing.
Right. And
so it's you go to school and stuff, and you realize at the front end, the money is in the back end.
Yeah. Well, time was one of the investments into my business. I mean, there's a little bit of investment for gear, and it wasn't too bad. Um, and I haven't even paid that off, so I'm like still going through that. But it wasn't too much, and time is the bigger investment, because there was a lot of time where I wasn't working, and there's two things you can do when you're not working. You could either be making yourself better or wasting whatever time there is by not making
Yes.
yourself better. So I'd spend all my time trying to make sure every facet of what I'm doing is somehow improving, or I'm learning something new. Hell, I'm doing a Southern Wrestling program in Tennessee on January 2nd, and I'm going to be the technical director on the show, meaning I switched the video, and I've never done that before. So he told me yeah, I'm doing it for the experience. They're paying me though, but it's less than scale. So I said, I will come up there and do it. I'm going to take less money. I want to see the operation. That's what I want to see.
Right. Well, yeah, it's funny. Your mindset is the same as mine. But I gotten laid off and entered bankruptcy. And I get up one day and I got some nice clothes on. I'm heading out the door, and my daughter-in-law says, "Mr. Garwood, where are you going?" I said, well, I'm going to work. I said, "But you don't have a job." I said, "Yeah, I have a job." She says, "You do what?" "Finding one."
Finding a job.
And every day, and it's my kids don't realize how close to the precipice of terror I was in those days, when there was everything I was comfortable with doing, there was nothing for me.
Yep.
And I had to go back and revisit something that I had been doing 20 years previous, playing guitar, music. God, I'd forgotten so much. And when I said it was the ballsiest move ever going in that music store, if he'd looked down, he would have seen my knees shaking, because what if they find out that I'm an imposter?
Well, yeah.
But and Gary would tell you this, it's all about the hustle.
Yeah.
And it's about putting yourself out there, and you put yourself in a place where you have to perform, where you're doing it. You're walking across the rope and there's no net, and you can't afford to fall down because you die. And I've always been like that. And I think that's probably one thing I appreciate about Gary, is that he's failed as much as anybody I've ever known, but he gets up, laughs, dusts himself off, throws himself back in it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're pretty much the same way.
Yeah, life's more fun that way. Yeah, I've worn both hats. I've been on the corporate side. I've been in the music side, and I don't know. It's all the same. You got to find that happy middle spot. There's nothing better on either side. You got to figure out how to be happy with what you got. And I didn't even realize that until like a year ago. Yeah, I feel like I just grew up.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, "You know what's amazing this last 5 or 6 years?" She says, "What?" "For the first time in my life, I'm not looking for the next thing. Everywhere I've been, I've always even if I was happy in a job, I was always looking for the next job.
Me too.
I was always looking for the next church. If I was in a church, I'm looking for the next church to go to. Never happy, never satisfied. And this last, almost 10 years, I guess, I'm just really, we don't have much money. I don't have a retirement built up to speak of. But man, I can't recall life being any better than it is right now. Every day I get to get up, I get to do something with music. I'm teaching it, I'm writing it, I'm singing it, I'm playing it, or whatever. Every day is music. I'm playing in church. I'm getting ready to go out and do some coffee house type things just because.
Right.
And just because I want to play some 70s stuff. I want to play some old Jim Croce, and I want to play some Arlo Guthrie. Dude, I might even want to play some of your Bud songs, because those are stinking awesome.
He plays a few cover songs too. If you go back to my page, you'll see the Palladium show. There's a couple of old covers in there, like Blue Eye, or I'd have to look and see. What part of town are you in? Are you in Powder Springs?
I'm in Dallas.
Okay, so I grew up in Powder Springs, over just very close to Dallas. Mad Life up here in Woodstock does a really killer open mic on Mondays. You should sign up. I mean, I've played it once, but he seems to be signed up for like 3 to 4 months in advance.
That is a really popular venue.
They do a great job there. Greg Shaddix, he's done very well. They have a nice PA. They got insane light system, and this is just on their porch. The
Yeah.
inside stage, it's only for like the not cover bands. They don't call them that anymore. They're tribute bands.
Right.
But it's a nice operation. I'm not sure where the name came from. It's a horrible name to me, but I had a thing against cover bands because I was in original bands. I don't like cover bands. Didn't want to be in a cover band. And so I was really irritated when they opened and saw that they were only doing tribute bands. So I wanted to go and figure it out. Why are they doing this? What's the problem? What are they doing? And then I got there and I was like, oh, I get it. They love music. They need to keep their doors open. They got a beautiful place and they need people to come in that spend money on food and booze that can support the price tag on this beautiful building. And when they do that, they can do 2 shows a night, 3 times a week, or, Friday and Saturdays, 2 shows, and Thursdays aren't. And they can get Alice in Chains cover bands, and just every one of them can come in there. I'll never see Alice in Chains again, but I can go see the tribute band for like 12 or 15 bucks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a price that's reasonable. But it's just, I'm happy with the way things have turned out. And honestly, now, if you had told me 30 years ago that this is what the life of a professional musician would look like, I would have laughed at you, because to me, I only thought gigging. I only thought shows and tours, and I'd done all that stuff. And I was getting old. I was just getting old.
Man, there's so many ways now. This is awesome.
Yeah. And now when COVID hit and I got diagnosed with congestive heart failure a couple of years ago, and so for 2 years, I was locked down in my house. I couldn't go out, do much of anything while the doctors were sorting things out. And then the COVID thing came along. And so I had to make a hard pivot with technology. It probably took me 6 months to be able to set up to do what I'm doing with you right now, because Zoom was a mystery to me.
Right.
And being able to manipulate it. And there's other programs I'm using with it. There's a program called Manycam, Manycam, which allows me to use multiple cameras. So when I'm teaching guitar, I have like several cameras set up, one on my guitar neck,
cool,
pick in hand, and then my smiley little face. And so it took me a while to get all that worked out. And then I've been really struggling with Facebook Live, trying to make it work. And I don't know if it's me, my gear, or Facebook is just being a pain in the ass. I don't know. I want to blame Facebook.
I was able to make it work just by using my phone, but I've never tried to do any like a live setup like you're talking about. I don't know how to tell Facebook that you want to use your peripherals. You know what I mean? That's beyond me right there. I don't know.
Well, it worked great for me for about 7 months.
I was going to set up my camera for this and I could get it to recognize, and then finally I said, you know what? I'm just going to use my laptop.
It works.
My main computer doesn't have it's like a 27-inch screen with it doesn't have a video camera or anything on it.
Oh, I wish you could see what I've got. It's funny. I've got like a 44-inch over here to the left, and I've got like a curved screen 40-inch in front of me. And my wife thinks it's because I'm blind as a bat, but I just kind of think it looks cool.
Looks cool, and you can do a lot of stuff without having to move a lot of stuff,
Yep, absolutely.
I usually have 4 screens going right here, unless I bring my iPad, and I'll drop an iPad over here for when I'm doing like color or something.
Mm-hmm. So now, what is your video software that you're using?
I use DaVinci Resolve.
Okay, I'm using something called Camtasia. It's, believe it or not, I think it's out of the Ukraine.
DaVinci, I believe they're Australian. But well, no, maybe that's not them. Anyways, DaVinci Resolve, there is a free version, which is very, very powerful. Very powerful. And I got the studio version basically for free, but they have a speed editor you can buy. For $300. And if you buy this, they give you the studio version. So I'm like, all right. So now I got a speed editor I use it only comes in handy when I'm just starting a project. You just kind of cut and selects and stuff like that. But now I've got the full version and I can do everything that I need inside the program. So everything from all the post and audio, the color, the edits, everything is handled in the house within it. It's very complex, but it operates, I would say, just like any other system does.
Well, it's Camtasia is serving me well, but I'm beginning to see the limitations of it. And the more comfortable I get with it, I'm beginning to see there's things I can't do that I wish I could, and that's probably so. I've been kind of casting my eye towards other platforms, and DaVinci. You're not the first person that's mentioned it.
Well, there's a lot of good videos out, obviously. You just got to pick where you go. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of people jumping away from Adobe because Adobe's every month you got to pay. With DaVinci, you pay once it's yours, and you can put it on 2 computers. You get the update every time it comes out. It's yours, period. And you don't keep paying them any money. And they've actually they started optimizing for the M1 Max.
Right.
And I've got an M1 Mini that I use.
Oh, that's my platform. That's what I work off of.
Beautiful, man. And so it's optimized for that. And I shoot a lot of my files in ProRes files, and ProRes files are really big, but they're also like work really well on them. I've got my computer can handle it. So it's a match made in heaven over here with those.
Well, with my music, I use Logic Pro, and this Mac Mini just absolutely smokes.
Oh yeah,
smokes that.
It's a Pro Tools guy, but now I use GarageBand because I don't record audio very much. So if I need to scratch out an idea, I'll just throw plug a mic in. I've got a Focusrite here, and I just plug it into the Focusrite and just go for it. And GarageBand.
That's what you got. Do you have the 2i Focusrite, dude?
2i2, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I got the 2i2. I got the Mac Mini.
Yeah.
So. Are you sure we're not related somewhere?
It's starting to feel like it. What's your last name? Those Mac Minis are great. I recommend that to anybody that asks, because I edit 4K video, and albeit they're small projects, I don't do large projects. Like when the Dean, like that documentary is 30 minutes. I mean, it wasn't that complex, but that computer handles it just fine. Not a problem.
Oh, I've never had a hiccup with mine. I love it to death. And it's, I'm actually, of course, the nerd in me wants the M2, but the M1 is
definitely
working.
Get the M2. I mean, because I would think the M3 is coming out soon. You can get an M2 cheap.
Yep, that's what I'm waiting for. Well, hey, we're going to have to do this again sometime. I would love to. If I have your permission, if I edit this into a podcast, are you cool with that?
I'm cool with that.
All right. We might want to maybe set up an interview with you and what's your artist friend name again?
Dean.
Yeah, maybe we could set up we can get him to Zoom in,
right,
and have the 3 of us just do a podcast about his album or whatever, whatever project he's working on.
Talk to him about that. See if he's game for it. He's usually pretty game for everything. He's a good dude.
So we could perhaps look at doing something with him in January. You say his albums come out when? February
or March. Yeah.
All
so
right.
we got plenty of time. So if we could look into January, that'd probably be the best.
Okay. So let's think about doing something like that. That'd be fun. That'd be new for me too, because I've never done a 3-way conversation for a podcast before. So that'd be fun.
He's got the same setup as well. He's got, so I can set up a microphone and give you much better audio than this, and he can do the same on his end. So yeah, if we can pull that together, that'd be nice, man.
Let's do it. All right. Well, it's nice meeting you. And, I'm sure we are going to be doing this again.
I look forward to it, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, my friend. God bless you. Bye-bye.